heran Good afternoon and welcome to the 24th session of Talksopedia, Once Upon a Time, Digitally. Now, before I start the session, let me just take you through the same rules that I always explain during the meeting, that please keep yourself on mute throughout the session. If you think that you are in a comfortable position or in a comfortable place, you can switch your videos on. Otherwise, I would request you to please keep your videos off. Now, it's time to start our session and introduce our guest speaker. Now, who is our guest speaker? Our guest speaker is the founder and chief instructor of digital storytelling. He has empowered around 1,500 young storytellers across Sri Lanka in the past 5 years. He is currently reading for attorney at law at Sri Lanka Law College and also works as a freelance consultant and trainer with both international and local development sector organizations. Now, what is this digital storytelling all about? Why is he doing it? And who is he? To know more about it, let me invite our guest speaker onto the screen, Benislas Thushan. The screen is yours, and let me put you onto spotlight. And guys, he is coming all the way from Sri Lanka to share his story and tell us more about digital storytelling. You may please go ahead.
Thank you, Nisha. I really appreciate this opportunity, and thank you all of you for taking your time to join us today to talk about and to discuss about the possibilities of storytelling. And also, I would like to take this to share about the experiences we have been having in carrying out this passion project of mine. So I'll be sharing the screen so that it's easier for me to run through the program with you, as you can look at it. So basically today, in the upcoming 35 minutes, I would like to share about this initiative called digital storytelling, which we have been doing for the past 4.5 years, since 2016 March. I've launched this education initiative called digital storytelling, right? Usually when I say digital storytelling, it takes everyone by surprise, and everyone tends to ask the question, okay, what this really is, right? Okay, what is storytelling, right? Why is it important? Because if we see, storytelling has become this buzzword of this decade, where all the brands are using it, where the development sector is using it, where the politicians are using it, and it's everywhere, right? And it's almost overused, and sometimes its meaning can be a little bit diluted. But let me share from my perspective, why do I believe in the course of digital storytelling, and what do I hope to achieve out of it, right? So as I begin, I want to, like once upon a time digitally, and this is my digital storytelling and the case for citizen journalism, right? So I want to give a context into where I'm coming from. Sri Lanka is an island nation that's on the south of India. We are an island. We are very famous for 2 things around the world, or even 3. We are famous for our tea, and we tend to boast that we supply the best tea in the world. And also we used to be really famous for cricket, not really anymore, but we were very competitive. We had a very competitive cricket team, and we were famous for our 30-year-long war, the Civil War, the second longest civil war that lasted in the world. And the Civil War came to an end in 2009. So I come from the northmost part of Sri Lanka, which was ravaged by war. And having born and having lived throughout my childhood, and also finished my schooling in an area that was affected by war, once the war ended, I naturally became very passionate about peace building, right? I became very passionate about reconciliation. I was genuinely attracted to the cause of building bridges between the communities so that we can avoid this human catastrophe and we can prevent it from happening one more time. And as we began looking into the reasons what has caused the communities to live apart, or the polarizing factors of the communities, one of the things that came again and again and again is the role played by the polarized and politicized mainstream media. And politicians and also the actors with vested interest have mastered the art of using media to, to build the public perception about certain communities, to reinforce the stereotypes, and to divide and slice the communities as they want to go along. And one thing I've realized was like this reality called mainstream media is continuing to go to exist, right? And we can't change this culture overnight. But surprisingly, two of my passions were right after the war. As I was working in Colombo, the capital of Sri Lanka, two of my passions have been, I really love photography. I love telling stories. And I love the writing part of it, right? I love being a communicator. I love being able to communicate my message to the audience in the real time. So I have been experimenting this on Instagram, where I post pictures and where I share a story with the wider world, right? And as I started doing that more and more, there was a lot of people who started getting connected. Like, for example, the diaspora community of Sri Lanka, Sri Lankans living from outside the world and outside of Jaffna. And there was a common line that was in all of their feedback, that this part of story about Jaffna or this part of story about Sri Lanka is something that is very fresh. We have not seen this before. And I've realized because they have been so used to seeing the story with particular flips, right? With particular inclination to a particular narrative or a particular angle, that they have not seen the reality of what was happening in the ground. And then I realized, okay, this is something I can experiment with. Why don't I take and share this skill with young people from all around Sri Lanka? That's when I came up with this education initiative called digital storytelling. So the rationale was very simple, right? We wanted to teach about three important things. And last year, we have added the fourth pillar to it. The first was teaching young people about the fundamentals of storytelling, right? What is storytelling? Storytelling is the communication process between the audience and the storyteller, right? What are the tools of storytelling? The tools are the ones that helps you to ease the process. For example, it could be photography, filmmaking, it could be memes, it could be cartoons, it could be anything that eases the process of storytelling, right? So what are the tools? And what are the basic skills of storytelling? For example, how do you go and interview someone as you're trying to make a story? So the first pillar deals with the fundamentals of storytelling. The second pillar we pick specifically two tools, right? Mobile photography and mobile filmmaking. Why? Everyone has access to this little computer in their pocket with a very decent camera, with instant connectivity, and with audience to reach on the go. On Facebook, if you're friends with 1,000 people, you can at least reach 1,000 people. And if they keep sharing, it can go beyond that, right? Yes, we can talk about algorithms and the reach and all of it. But the larger point is we can readily reach people and we have our own set of audience there. And thirdly, we want to teach about social media and digital tools, right? Because this is one area where a lot of people thought that they knew it, but their skills were very limited. For example, one of the session we teach specifically on this is how do you use the power of hashtags, right? Sometimes hashtag is the highly misunderstood digital tools which young people use without knowing the context why they should use it, right? And also we make sure that every single storyteller who passes through this program, this flagship program, goes out with a LinkedIn account where they can personally brand themselves. They can do their personal branding, and they can show themselves as professionals with their acquired qualifications all throughout, right? So these three pillars have been important part of our educational initiative. And we have added one more pillar last year, which is the critical media literacy. Because with the ongoing weaponization of social media, with misinformation, fake news, and especially the advent of hate speech, right? This is a critical angle. We want to empower the young people with the skills of how do you not only become better storytellers, how do you become better and responsible consumers of information? And how do you engage in that information ecosystem with with the necessary digital hygiene as you go about it, right? So these reflect two of the core values which we have to share, and we call this education process DST journey, which stands for digital storytelling journey. And if you're curious about it, you can go to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and type DST journey, and you can follow the journey which we have been following all this time. So I want to add one more thing as I go before moving into the next section is, so why these three aspects of digital storytelling, right? Let's take an example. It's almost like putting up a building, right? The fundamentals of storytelling is the foundation of the building. No one gets to see it. No, and people would think it's silly, like, why do we have to know about storytelling? We know it's a communication process between a storyteller and the audience. But having that foundational knowledge is absolutely key as you're going to build the building. So the mobile photography and filmmaking are like the building blocks, right? That's the part which you get to see. And thirdly, social media and digital tools is like the painting and the interior decoration, the way in which you bring out this building and present it to the world, right? And also fourth, the critical media literacy is like, how do you communicate what the building is and the building is not, right? So that you hold tight grips onto the narrative of the building you are putting up. So we had this motive of empowering young people with the skills of storytelling and also digital literacy to become citizen journalists, visual storytellers, and responsible digital citizens. And the rationale was very simple. Everyone had a decent smartphone. The internet connectivity was very smart. Almost 60% of the Sri Lankans have connectivity to internet. And there was an online community out there to whom you can cater your stories to, right? And so there's a decent camera and the real-time sharing that enables the connectivity and the connectivity itself and the online community that is out there. And we use a multi-pronged approach to take this education initiative out into the world. First one is the flagship program called DST Journey. This is a 4 to 6 months program which we do with the young people from Jaffna. What we do is because it's a high demand course, everyone is interested in taking pictures, everyone is interested in writing captions, everyone wants like heart reactions and wow reactions to their pictures. So young people are automatically attracted to an educational initiative that caters to their interests, and that would substantiate and add value to something which they really enjoy doing. So they have designed this course for 4 months with all these 4 components: fundamentals of storytelling, mobile filmmaking and photography, social media and digital tools, and critical media literacy. So the flagship program that runs for 4 months, what we do is we put out the application. A lot of storytellers apply, or the aspiring storytellers apply. We conduct a one-to-one interview and give them a homework, right? Because, and also we do it for free for young people. So when you open anything for free, a lot of people would want to be a part of it and they might drop out in the middle. So we give them an assignment saying, go to your community, capture 5 different pictures that you think that depicts your community with 5 different captions and email it to us, right? And those who go through that process, those who have the commitment to finish the process, get to be a part of the program. So these are some of the highlights from the program where we were teaching them about the DSLR. How do you handle DSLR cameras, because it can be an intimidating tool for the beginners, right? And these were some of the young participants from Jaffna itself. And these were some of the alumni who were part of the program already, who came to speak with the incoming batch. So they spoke with some of the other incoming batch students. This course happens at the educational outreach center called the American Corner. So you can see them having a discussion with some of these young people. So what we do is, once they go through the program and once they graduate the program, they become part of the alumni pool and they become mentors to the incoming students. So they consistently engage with these incoming students and they come and share their knowledge uh, uh, consistently. And this was one of the highlights of the digital storytelling journey we have been having for the last 4.5. So it's going to be 5 years next March. We started a batch in the plantation sector. So Kandy is a district that's situated at the heart of Sri Lanka, which is at the center of Sri Lanka. It's a mountain region. It's a hill region. This is where most of the tea get produced. And the community that lives there, and most of them have been brought by the British during the colonial times from India. And they are one of the most marginalized communities in Sri Lanka. And most of the time, their voices do not get carried to the mainstream, and they have been continually used and left used. So it has been a passion of mine to reach out to this community and wanting to work with the young people there. So the opportunity arrived in 2018. I was able to conduct a class for 4 months with these young storytellers from Kandy themselves. And at the end, they started a storytelling movement called Everyday Hill Country, in which they showcase their everyday storytelling to the world. And they were able to reclaim their narratives. And secondly, we also conduct master classes, right? So in addition to this 4 months program, the other thing what we wanted to do was to build capacity of professionals who are already having basic skills, but how do we engage with them? How do we give the mobile journalism capacity? How do we give the storytelling capacity? And how do we work with them? How do we integrate them into this digital future we all want to and we all aspire to share? So this was a training we conducted with the journalists and journalism students in the North. So it was almost 40 journalists who came together for this training. We conducted 2-day training that gave them basic skills on mobile journalism and how you can use the mobile to tell stories of your communities. And this was a session conducted for psychosocial counselors, all of them. It was almost for 70 of them. And this was before COVID, so where the social distancing was not an issue back then. And the reason to conduct this was there were psychosocial counselors. They were working with those who were affected by the war and those who are still struggling with the war. And sometimes when they don't have right filters as they tell their stories, the vulnerable population could be put into danger. So we taught them about the ethics of storytelling. How do you protect the anonymity of your source? How do you tell the stories without putting them in the danger? How do you try to bridge the gap between the narrative, between the reality and the perception? So this was one of those master classes with the like almost 70 of the government servants, 70 to 80 government servants who were working as psychosocial counselors. These young people were fishing activists because Sri Lanka, since it's an island, there's a lot of problems faced by fishermen in Sri Lanka. And they work for an NGO called NAFSO, which works on the welfare of the fishermen. And some of these young people are activists who are working with that organization. So they wanted their capacity to be built so that the issues faced by these fishermen in their communities could be brought to the mainstream, could be shared with the world. So we worked with them for 2 continuous days. to build their capacity on digital storytelling, on how do you conduct an interview, how do you tell a story. So this was also before COVID, so social distancing was not an issue. And this is with them. And also we do a session called DST Spark, which is Digital Storytelling Spark, where we go to the rural communities and where we engage with educational institutions with brief session, right? Say like 2 hour session, 3 hour session on specific topics relating to digital storytelling so that we can empower them with this knowledge. For example, this was a session with ATI, the Technical Advanced Technical Institute students. It's almost like a community college in Jaffna. And this was during their orientation. We taught them about the introduction to digital storytelling, and also we taught them about LinkedIn. This was almost 200 students there. And this was at the American Corner Candy. This was engaging with students from all different parts of Sri Lanka who came together for this program. And we discussed about what is digital citizenship is and how do you protect yourselves in this digital realm. And this is a class with one of the local volunteering groups in Jaffna called Sirakal, which means wings. And they work extensively on the educational development of students from the marginalized communities. So we taught them how do you can use the digital tools to bring these stories and tell these stories to the world outside. And also as we went along, we have also collaborated with a couple of the institutions. For example, once we had this collaboration with University College of London to bring out these stories that were created by some of the storytellers who went through the digital storytelling platform. And we had a physical exhibition where they brought out their stories and showcased their stories to the outer world. And it was a very proud moment for these students, because usually photographers and recognized storytellers gets opportunities to share their stories, but these students were amateurs. They were taking stories that represents the essence of their communities, that does not get highlighted on the mainstream media. But and that's such a collaboration with the University College of London as we did this exhibition was fruitful as they presented their stories during that engagement. And also we worked with one of our local NGOs to create a toolkit called Digital Citizenship Toolkit. It provides any digital citizens, anyone who is a part of digital realm with enough knowledge about what digital citizenship, what are the hygienes, online hygienes you can use, how do you protect your data, how do you protect your privacy, and also about misinformation, how do you fight against misinformation, and also it gives them basic tools to share their stories and use the power of storytelling. And this is one of the highlights of the digital storytelling experience, right? So one of the case study which we use during the digital storytelling course as we go along is a movement called Everyday Africa. What Everyday Africa seeks to do, I can just show it to you, Google it and show it to you, what Everyday Africa is. Everyday Africa is a storytelling movement that seeks to bring the everyday stories about Africa to the forefront, right? Because there was these two photographers. There was a photojournalist and a journalist. Meryl Austin was a journalist. Peter DeCampo was a photographer. They were in Ivory Coast for an assignment. And when they went back, they felt that the mainstream media has always portrayed Africa in a very negative light, and how we can combat this narrative. And they came up with this movement by the African themselves called Everyday Africa. And what they did was they gave the opportunity for Africans to take simple pictures about what Everyday Africa looks like with simple captions and post it. And now we are oceans apart, we are thousands of miles apart. I'm from Sri Lanka, you're from different parts of the world, are able to see what everyday lifestyle in Africa looks like. So usually I take almost 2 hours to explain this session, but on the interest of time, I'll make it quick. So after the Everyday Africa, there were a lot of everyday movements that were started all around the world, right? For example, there's Everyday Sri Lanka, there's Everyday Kathmandu, Everyday Bataclan, Everyday Africa, Everyday Latin America, Everyday everywhere, Everyday Middle East, Everyday Elam, Everyday Egypt, Everyday Iran. And there are almost dozens and dozens of storytelling moments that sprung all around the world that showcases everyday stories that bridge the gap between the perception about a place and the reality of the place. Because what the mainstream medias have championed all this time is to create a certain perception, a certain narrative tilt, a certain spin about a region or about a community. But what, as we storytellers try to do, is to portray the reality or take the audience a step closer to reality and portray the communities as what it is right now. So some of the ripple effects that were created following this course was um, the students themselves were part of the program. They went ahead and created these storytelling moments called Jaffnapedia. So what Jaffnapedia seeks to achieve is to tell everyday stories about Jaffna. And once they started Jaffnapedia, Sri Lanka has a huge diaspora population, especially from Jaffna. A lot of people start writing to them saying, hey, I've not been able to come to Jaffna because of the war, but because of this great storytelling work you are doing, I'm able to see where my father has born, where my grandparents were, and thank you for this opportunity. And also, I should say it has anchored a lot of radical diaspora elements who said, you are sanitizing our struggle. This is not Jaffna. But what these storytellers were aiming to do was not to have any narrative spin, but to showcase Jaffna as it is. And this is one of my favorite storytelling movements called Everyday Mulatev. So Everyday Mulatev is one of the districts that was most affected by the civil war in Sri Lanka. And one of these students came and said, sir, we were we have always been identified as a post-war district, but I want to change that narrative. I want us to be identified as a district with a lot of hope, with a lot of life. And I want to showcase this reality to the world. And he went ahead and started Everyday Mulatev. And there's this movement called the Seekers Click, where some of the students are sharing what their everyday lifestyle looks like. Um, then there's another storytelling movement called LK Streets that showcases the street photography of Sri Lanka, everyday Sri Lanka. And there's this another storytelling movement called Humans of Jaffna. All these are started by the alumni of the digital storytelling program. Humans of Jaffna has a unique angle to it. There's a lot of people who were affected by the advent of plastic. For example, those who make rope, those who make broomsticks, those who make equal brooms, and those who make other kinds of utilities have been affected by the replacement of plastic of those traditional industries that have been existing for decades. So what he really wanted to do was to put a spotlight on some of these workers who have come to define our work, our community, and what it stood for, and those who are at the verge, those whose livelihood are at the verge of extinction, right? So they came out and they showcased some of their stories. And there's the other platform called Urukai, which showcases which translates to pickles, which showcases the struggle of a minority community through everyday stories. So what do students do at the end of the program, at the end of this flagship initiative? What they do is they create photo stories. They work on a photo story that reflect on a problem their community is facing. It could be a positive thing, it could be a negative thing, but showcases the reality of their community. For example, this photo story, like it has a long photo story with almost 20 pictures, 4 or 5 videos, and also with narratives and with text that fills in the middle. This photo story works and showcases about the livelihoods that have been lost after 2000. This is the same person who runs Humans of Jaffna also. And also it embraces the model of Humans of New York, which is also a case study which we use during the program. And this showcases about a fishing community and the marine pollution that has been taking place in this particular village. This photo story showcases about a village that was affected by war, and also the current educational status of this particular village. This photo story showcases about the traditional art forms of Jaffna, and also in search of, and it says in search of our identities. As some of these art forms are going out of touch, this particular student, who is also a medical student, she wanted to create awareness about these art forms to the young people right now. And what better tool to tell these than using digital storytelling? And this is about the preschool education and the situation about preschool education in Jaffna. And this is about a traditional food restaurant called Ammachi, which only supplies healthy, traditional food items to its customers. So students at the end of the program, they create a small video documentary and photo stories. It's a must that all of them have to focus on one of these and create it. And this, they have a photo like showcase of their projects at the end. Um, So that's what we do with digital storytelling. And our hope is that, okay, why do we do all this, right? Our hope is that when we bring these skills to young people, already they have a smartphone, already they have basic digital literacy, they have the necessary audience on their social medias, and they have a community, an online community they can engage with connectivity. So when we put all these puzzles together so that it makes sense to the audience, our hope is that they can run with it. They can tell the stories of our communities. They can reclaim the narratives. They don't have to rely on the mainstream media anymore. And they can be proud storytellers. They can be proud voices for their communities. And also, when someone mudslings their communities, when someone spreads false narratives about their communities, and when someone says something that is not true about their communities, they can provide counter narratives and they can take ownership in their own right. And that is the scope of digital storytelling. And that is what we seek to achieve, to empower young people as citizen journalists and also as digital citizens who are capable not only to tell their stories, but also as responsible consumers of information who will not be manipulated and who will not turn the other way when their communities are shown in negative lights. And ultimately, what we seek to achieve is a community in which there are informed citizens who can make informed choices. And what we seek to do is to create all these different positive narratives that are floating in the information ecosystem. And by countering these narratives, we believe that we can break the stereotypes, we can break the communication barriers, and we can build peace and build bridges between communities. Thank you. And I would like to entertain your questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, Benislis. Storytelling can be so deep, right? When it we most of us here, most of us are speakers, and we use different stories to convey our message. And for us, storytelling is all about having a story and then decorating it with lots of words and actually fabricating a lot of things. But today you told me that storytelling is something that actually gives us the correct message and make the people understand the difference between perception and reality. That is what I liked about all the thing that you said about digital storytelling. Now, going back to the question and answer session, I have received few questions here. Now, my personal question to you is, you mentioned something about the anonymity, okay, saving the anonymity of the storytelling resources, the story resources. How can that be done? You are on mute. Benislis, you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
Sure. Sorry about that. This is a brilliant question, right? One of the questions students consistently ask is, how do we, like, where do we draw the line? Sometimes we will be as storytellers, we would want to put the resources out there, we would want the world to see, right? But sometimes some of our sources could be affected by it because they're vulnerable, the vulnerabilities could be exploited. So one of the but sometimes not showing them at all is not also option. For example, when we teach them mobile photography and filmmaking, one of the techniques we teach them is, in addition to the compositional techniques, we teach them about shots and angles. One of the shots which we teach is a very like a close-up shot, right? Sometimes you don't have to show their face. Like when they're just holding their hands together, you can show the close-up of their hand, or you can take a picture or a medium shot from the back so that you can't see their face, right? Or you can put them behind a veil and you can just take the photos so that you can see a reflection of a person, but you won't be able to see who it is. So there's always ways. The reason why always encourage them to have the subject one way or the other is instantly when an audience see the subject, either they see them completely, when they see them partially through a close-up shot, they're able to build that instant connection. But not showing them at all is not really effective. So how do you build the trust in the source as you approach this, right? Then this is the $1,000,000 question. It's all about the storyteller's energy. It's always telling them, I understand that you are having this struggle, and I want to protect your identity. I don't want to tell a story in which it causes any harm to you. And as a storyteller, I would fail if I do that. But is it okay if I can just show a close up of this? Say the person was affected in the war, right? They have a scar of the war. Can I just take a close up of your scar? You don't have to show your face. And most often, unbelievably so, most of them say yes. So it's all about finding the right tool to do that, right? And sometimes some of them might be forthcoming, and sometimes some of them might flatly deny, no, we don't. Then it's completely fine. But there's always that opportunity where you can persuade them. I don't want to use this word in a wrong way, where you can convince them by ensuring that their identities will be protected. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ministers. There is one question that I have received, and it is almost similar to the one that I asked. When you try to show the reality, and people, let me tell you that people are not very fond of realities. Okay, they don't want to know the truth. But when you show it to them, have you ever faced problems from the government, because there are so many things that we are showing through digital sources? So have you ever got into trouble because of all this?
Uh, yeah, and I like it though. So I think one of my, like, how I see storytelling is I am a bridge between the reality and the audience. And it's not about me, it's about the story that should speak. And one of my, like, I'll share one of the example. I'll share the screen quickly, and I'll share one of the stories that are very close to me, which I have done last year. So this is a story of a balloon salesman. Like, our basic storytelling model is take a photo or a video with a basic caption with a couple of hashtags and reach audience, right? So last 2019, April 21, most of you would have heard, Sri Lanka faced a devastating bomb attack where almost 256 people have been killed. And religious places like churches were targeted and hotels were targeted by some of the suicide bombers. And once this bombing happened, the social media went on steroids. And the majority community has been accusing a particular community, especially in this case, Muslim community, and calling them names, calling them as terrorists. And just 3 days before the Easter Sunday attacks, I was there in Batticaloa, in the east of Sri Lanka, through with the law school friends. I went there for my holidays, and I went to this place called Gandhi Park, which was just 100 meters away from where one of the attacks took place, right? And I did not want to go to social media and preach that don't be racist, because the moment I tell them, I lose my audience, right? Because I, like, any storytelling where a storyteller is trying to take a moral high horse is gonna fail, because people do not want to be preached upon. So I was contemplating on I don't want to see Sri Lanka spiraling back into that war mentality again, where communities are divided between each other. But how can I tell it? And I had this photo of this balloon salesman who came from that community itself. And he was just 100 meters away from this church in the Gandhi Park that symbolizes nonviolence, where he was selling balloon, of course, to make a penny out of it, to young children. And he was doing it in an enjoyable fashion. He was selling balloons, he was enjoying it, and he was having a dialogue with these children who were having coming to this park. And I was very amused when I saw him. And I asked him, can I take a picture of you as you're selling the balloons? And he said, of course, yeah, that's fine. So I just wanted to tell his story with a photograph and a caption, and says, if you want to judge a community by the acts of those 9 or 10 suicide bombers, then I want to judge the same community by the act of this kind and gracious young man who was doing nothing, who was just 100 meters apart, who was just doing his job, who was just spreading happiness. And as much as you think I can't define the whole community by the act of one person, you can't also define a whole community by the act of 9 or 10 people. Yes, they might have used or politicized their religion to carry that out, but that does not reflect on the whole community, and the generalization does not work here. So, did I get backlash from the community? Of course, yes. A lot of people were upset that I was not. I was trying to. I was trying to spread this message, and also the power of this was a lot of people started reading the caption, and it really moved them. It really gave them a different perspective. And some of the people who were very radical about it were upset with me. But I think when you're a storyteller, you tend to upset certain people, and that's part. And I consider it as a reward for the job you do. So yeah, it's part, and it's a good place. And if you're upsetting few people when you're telling stories of your communities, it's always a good thing to do. And that's my stance.
Thank you so much, Venezuela. And here we have few people who want to know, what do you think are the limitations in what you do?
Sure. So when we even reach young people and teach them the skill of storytelling, right? There's the limitation of technical availabilities. Like, for example, I shared you the story of teaching young people in Kandy from one of the most marginalized communities. And when I went there, we didn't have any Wi-Fi reception. And I had to connect through the mobile hotspot to my computer. And we always had the one point of signal, so that some of the times, like what I did was I downloaded all the videos, I brought it and played it, right? And even with praising, I had to do a PowerPoint presentation. Like, the limitation is the disparity of the digital resources that are available between communities. That is one thing. Second thing is, there's also this challenge of people can use storytelling for the disadvantaged causes, right? People can use storytelling to target a community. That is also true. But then again, our hope is that the storytelling is almost like a double-edged sword. You can either it's almost like a knife. You can either cut apple, or you can kill yourself or kill someone else. The choice is yours. But what we, on a broader sense, on a bigger picture, what we try to do is trying to give these skills to the young people. We are sure that when they bring out the communities, the voices of their communities, the narrative of their communities to the mainstream, there's, as far as there are counter narratives that are existing out there, all these negative forces, all these challenges could be mitigated with.
Thank you, Venezuela. And one question that, how can we best tell stories about sensitive issues? So if politics or, general culture and education, discrimination, how can we do that?
Brilliant question. So one of I'll just use an example from a South Indian perspective. There's this filmmaker called Vetri Maran. Some of the audience might know. He's a Tamil filmmaker from Chennai. He directed this Oscar-winning movie called Bisarane, which means an inquiry that reflects about the police brutality. It was based on a true story and it was nominated to Oscar. And last year he did an interesting movie called Asuran. And this is a very nuanced movie that doesn't use the word caste at all throughout the film. But on a broader issue, it deals with the caste discrimination and how you can come out of the caste discrimination. Why I love Vetrimaran is there are other directors who have dealt with the caste issue in their storytelling, right? But the genius of Vetrimaran is he never uses that word. He never preaches that caste-based discrimination is right. But he take the audience on a journey, the journey of the protagonist. And at the end of the story, at the end of the film, when you come out of the theaters, if you have ever been exposed to that culture where that discriminates caste, and there could be power imbalances, whatever the side you belong in, there's a sense of guilt leaves you with. And when Vetrimaran was asked in an interview, I've watched most of his interviews online, in an interview about, like, would you get into politics? And he says, I'm not a politician, but the best political tool I have to convince the masses is my film. So I believe storytelling, if it's a photograph, if it's a film, if it's a small documentary, it has the power to get into the minds of the audience, right? When you preach, I don't want to hear it. But when you tell a story, stories are engaging. It connects to the emotion. It connects to the core of the people. And this is one of the reasons. And I'll tell you one more example. There was this film called Periyeru Perumal, that was also by a debutant filmmaker called Mari Selvaraj. And there was not this macho heroic movie that was shot. It was a movie also about the caste discrimination, because this is an issue a lot of people don't want to even touch about, right? And also Jaffna, the area I come from, this was also the caste-based discrimination heavily. But then again, what Mari Selvaraj did is he never assigned a caste name to the protagonist or the villain, right? But he showed how the caste imbalances take place. And if it's okay, I'll just share a quick photograph. And he ends this movie with this last shot, which was genius of Mari Selvaraj. When he ends this movie, it's a discussion between the hero and the villain, right? And at the end of this, movie, sorry. Okay, let me go to Google. Just give me 1 minute. So this is the last shot of that movie, if you can say, right? Where there's like a tea glass that was half finished, and there was this plain tea glass that was half finished. So this higher caste person who comes from an affluent background has left it there, and this boy has left this plain tea glass, and it shows his poverty also, because you can see only a little more to finish it, right? And why I thought Mari Selvaraj was brilliant is he did not assign a caste, which caste they come from, right? But the storytelling was so nuanced. And this I love this poster also. The storytelling is so nuanced that once you finish watching this movie, it will definitely leave you with a guilt, especially if you have ever gone through that culture of caste-based discrimination. I'm not trying to pinpoint anyone, but that is why I believe the power of storytelling. Even the most complicated, the most ingrained issues such as caste, politics, or gender dynamics, or anything, storytelling has the power to transform the audience into a new realm. And that's why I believe in the power of storytelling.
Brilliant. That was absolutely brilliant. And there are so many people here, they are eager to know or get some tips from you to start storytelling? How can they start telling stories
Sure.
digitally? Yeah.
For example, there's no right way to tell stories, right? The medium I prefer is photographs mainly, and also filmmaking along with captions, because I want to marry my interest for visual storytelling through photograph and filmmaking, and my interest for writing through writing captions. And also I like verbal communication, but when you bring the stories out, I like these two mediums. And what I did was, like, I used to have it back in 2011 when I discovered my interest for photography. I had a small phone called Nokia C201. It doesn't come anymore. It has a very like 1-inch screen. I've taken almost 10,000 pictures with it. Everywhere I go, I take pictures. I try to analyze it. I ask people for feedback, right? So the basic skills is everything is on YouTube, right? Learn about basic compositional techniques, learn about shots, learn about angles, and take pictures and write simple captions. There's no right way to do it. For example, how I write caption, I try to give a context into what's happening in the picture. And I add one more layer, how I view it. As a personal, as a storyteller, what's my narrative stance on it? And I always make it clear, this is how I see it. I'm not saying this is the truth. I'm saying this is what's happening in the picture, and this is how I see it. If you are only interested in the truth, you can just take it. If you are interested in what I'm also, how I'm looking at it, you can take the other thing as well. So, like, usually students ask me this question: how do I become a better photographer? I always tell there are only two recipes: take more pictures, explore more pictures, because each photos, each instance you take a photographer, it's an experience. For example, the angle you're using, the lighting that comes from, where the shadow is falling, the amount of frame, the amount of composition you're trying to capture within a frame. So each instance, when you are deliberate about it, when you're intentional about it, as and Ansel Adams put it, you don't take a photo, you make a photo. And when you make a photo, it's that deliberate act of creating a photo is an experience. It doesn't stop there. Each time you see a photograph, right, look at it with a critical angle. Okay, like, which is the angle he has used? Where the light come from? Okay, how could he have done better? Not to say the photographer is insane or he's inept, but to say, okay, how we can improve upon it. And also there are countless tools, countless people, countless online groups, for example, Facebook groups, where you can go publish your images and get feedback in real time. And start writing captions. Go to Instagram, start a Facebook page, post it. And one thing I always tell my students is don't go behind likes, because it's an illusion, right? Cat videos might have 500,000 likes. Your photographs might only have 100 likes. But it doesn't negate, or it doesn't bring down the value of the photograph you take, or your contribution, your storytelling contribution to the world. So keep doing these things. I'm pretty sure over the time you will improve this art. And also, storytelling is a life skill. It's not a educational skill. You're going to do it even when you're having family, when you have kids. You're going to record these stories, right? So why not do it in a proper way? Why not enjoy the process of doing it?
Definitely, definitely. Stories are, our life itself is nothing but different stories, right? And I hope that it has answered that query. And thank you so much, dear listeners, because, when Fatana, okay, Fatana, if you know her, the audience here, she is my friend from Sri Lanka. She's also a Toastmaster. So when she spoke about you, I thought, you will be doing a session on digital storytelling and tell us about storytelling. But I never thought or imagined that this could be so deep with such in-depth information. Okay, so thank you so much for that, and I wish you more success in spreading this initiative and educating the young people around the world on digital responsibility, as you said, and digital citizenship. Thank you so much for that. And thank you to each one of you who attended the session, and thank you to those who are watching us on YouTube, live on YouTube. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next week, not next week. Next week, there won't be any session. 25th session of Talksopedia will be on 18th of December, which is, yes, Qatar's National Day also. So we will be having a very special guest on our 25th session. Till then, take a break, enjoy your days. See you again on 18th of December. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Bye bye.